Hey guys, this is Eric Weingartner with Weingartner Racing. It's a Saturday, so it's an update video day. I'm going to talk mostly about the small block Chevy Cam Challenge, but I am going to go negative on this video because everybody has a limit and they found mine. But that's not how I'm going to start, so we'll get to the positive stuff first. So first off, this week on Thursday, I got to go down to Arkadelphia, Arkansas to see Koontz, but really, in all fairness, we went down there because that's where Henderson State University is, and that's where my son's going to go to college. So we had his freshman orientation. And got to see all that, got to see the bill. Woo! But anyway, while I was there, I wanted to stop by and talk to the guys at Koontz because they're building the small block Chevy and will be dyno testing there at Koontz for the small block Chevy Cam Challenge that's coming up. I have a date approximately when we're going to do it as well that I'm going to share with you. So while I was down there, they already have the short block together. For those that don't know, in case you want any of that data, it's in the link, in the description for this video. There'll be a link that you can donate to the small block Chevy Cam Challenge. It costs a whopping $20. As it's all said and done, cam cars will get dropped in there, dyno sheets will get dropped in there, all the data for the engine, the entire thing, everything you would ever need to know is in there. And I'm going to go negative on that in just a minute later on, but all that information is in there for you. So if you want to see all that stuff, that's fine. There are 15 people that are already entered. They're accepted, they're good to go. Their cams have to be here by August 15th. For anybody else, there are 4 remaining spots now, but there were 5 remaining spots, and I said they're first come, first serve. And you have to listen to understand all of it, but what you needed to do is you have to have your entry fee, which is $600, and the camshaft here to be considered officially entered. So if you don't have the both, you're not entered, and there's only 5 spots, but they're now only 4. One competitor's camshaft showed up, and he's already paid his entry fee. And matter of fact, I should say this, if UPS shows up today, because I got a tracking number for one, we'll be down to 3 spots that'll be available. So we'll talk more about that later when I go negative, but those are there. So you have to have the cam and the entry fee, as it said in the rules more than a month ago. The rest of the 15 that are already entered, you just need to have both in by the 15th. These are for the remaining 5 spots, which is really 4 spots left. Anyway, the engine's down there at Koontz. They're putting it together. They have the short block already together. And I need to talk about one thing that I did have to change. So this is different from what's in there. I've since updated the information in that donation part so you can see all the specs. This one thing did get altered. And it's kind of a big deal, sort of. Here's what had happened. I bought those Doug Herbert horizontal tie bar lifters, and they're spring-loaded. And the idea was with those, in case you're wondering why I even chose to do that, they're solid rollers, and we're going to run hydraulic roller cams. But with those, the theory was, because they're spring bar on a horizontal deal, when you back off the lash, the lifters raise up out of the tunnel so you could pull the cam without taking off the intake manifold. That's the reason why I had chose those. I had forgotten one major factor, and what that factor was is those lifters are made for a stock block. This block is a Summit block, and it came from Summit, but just like all other aftermarket blocks, the lifter bores are 300 thousandths taller. So when Koontz went to install those lifters just to check things, the lifters will not even touch the base circle of the cam. They won't even touch the cam. They're off by a bunch. So I could not use those lifters, which is a bummer. So instead, I got a hold of BAM, and they're more than happy to help me out with this. So huge thank you to BAM. BAM is supplying the lifters. They're still the same diameter as far as the roller, same outer diameter too. They're an 842 diameter lifter. It's their DLC coated steel bushing ones, and it does have a 180 offset because I can do that, I just did a 180. It puts the push rod straighter. So for those who are all like, oh my gosh, I'm worried. Everything got better with the 180 offset. Now the push rod's straighter and everything's that way. The pair of lifters together weighs 219 grams. So you can keep that too. But regardless, had to do it. Now you might say, why didn't you just do a hydraulic roller then lifter if you're doing that? Because of this. I don't want to. I just rather do a saw roller lifter on a hydraulic roller cam because that was already in the rules, and some cams have already come in, they've already calculated that. Me changing the lifter will have nothing really to do with their stuff. The wheel diameter is the same, so none of that alters their cams. The lifter might have a little bit more mass, but it is what it is at this point. So that's one change that's happened. I can't think of anything else that's really happened besides this big news. So Kuntz is still working on their new dyno cell, but they're going to have it ready far before we go with this. But I said, well, when do you want to kind of have it? And they could have it at any time, really. But I said, well, cams aren't supposed to be until August 14th or 15th for the people that are entered. And I said, why don't we try for September? The reason for September is it's going to be cooler. So we're thinking middle September is when we're going to have the actual competition take place. So if you're wondering when will it take place, well, it's going to happen in mid-September. And if you want to see all that information, the dyno stuff, all that, in the description for this video, there'll be a link where you can donate and you will get to see all that data. And I forgot to bring this up. If you donate to the Small Block Chevy Cam Challenge, you get it entered in a chance to win a set of my CNC ported heads. So you at least get something out of it. You have a chance to win something too, besides the data. So that's pretty big. Here's the other thing, which is, this is kind of it, but I told people anyway, we were probably going to run a 1 7/8 header, but 1 7/8 step to 2-inch header. However, we're just going to run a straight 2-inch, which I don't even know if I put that in the notes. So I was looking today and I didn't see it. I didn't see it in there. So no one evidently spotted that, but it's a 2-inch header. We're going to use a stall adapter because those Dragon Slayers, usually I put not usually, but by request, I'll put in the stall pattern too, besides the standard pattern. I forgot to do it on this head because they're my own. So anyway, we're going to use an adapter and it's going to run a 2-inch header, which I thought might have already been in that anyway, but regardless, we're a 2-inch header. Is what it is. So I think that's about it as far as that stuff goes. There's nothing really else with that. While I was down at Kuntz, though, one of the things, and this happened if you follow me on Facebook, which people keep requesting my friend requests for my personal page. I almost never take those. My real Weingartner Racing is my Facebook page for business. That's where the rules have been out for more than a month for the small block Chevy and all the entries for those. Follow that one. But on Facebook, because I get on Facebook like some of you, very rarely because I hate Facebook, one of the things that got brought up was an argument about DI or direct injection versus port fuel injection versus carburetor. So and it was a post with Ryan, who works for GPI. GPI and Kuntz are the same company, essentially. And one of the other guys was Scott Clark, who's an EF guy guru, and I trust what he's doing. But anyway, one of the things that they had said is one was better than the other. And I said, I would love to be a part of that. I will host the whole thing. I mean, I'll go down there and I'll make sure everything's as fair as possible and we can share it. Because several people believe it's the DI. I have never tested it back to back to know the difference, to be able to say yes or no. But I do want to know. So part of me is like, in case you're wondering, the advantages for each. If you did a carburetor, when the carburetor sits up here, it's spraying fuel from the whole entry down, right? And we're talking LT engines, by the way, the next generation past LS on the Chevy. Well, if you have a carburetor up top, it cools the entire intake charge of it. So just from latent heat evaporation. It's where matter changes to phase, like solid liquid gas. It removes heat from the thing. But anyway, that gives an advantage to carburetor because the intake tract cooling should be, in fact, less. It should cool the air. But DI, on the other hand, if you want to say that, well, if you have DI, you don't even run fuel. So there's less fuel that has to be in your air system. So in fact, you're actually getting more air. But the air would be hotter, so then you're like, do with that. But the other advantage to DI, and this you can't make up with carburetor or port fuel injection, because port fuel injection could also cool the charge a little. But the other thing with DI is you're more able to exactly spray the fuel when you need it. So a carburetor, as you know, it's feeding the entire time. So it's not turning off the fuel at a certain point. Same with somewhat with port fuel injection. You would like to think you could target the exact point that it hits the valve and you could spray it in. But there's always a reversion pulse, so it still kind of comes up. With DI, you can exactly spray it. So there's advantages for each, but what's going to happen is, and I'm really trying to get everybody pushed on this, we're trying to find an LT engine that makes a fairly good amount of power. And Scott said he would come down and tune the port fuel injection, the guys at GPI, and then would do the DI and see what they make, and then someone good with carburetor could do that. I'm decent with carburetors. I don't mind saying that. I am decent with carburetors, but I am not the professional. But I would bring like a 1350 CFM. They could use that for the whole throttle body, because on the Hollies, Dominator carburetors, if you look off to the side, they actually have a mounting position for a throttle position sensor, which the EFI guys would have to use. So in theory, you could use that as your throttle body for all of them, so it wouldn't be any difference in the throttle body. Now, granted, the whatever intake that you bolt a carburetor on isn't probably the best for the others, but at least you'll be able to say directly related to fuel how that compares. I think that'd be a fun test. I have no idea how it'll turn out. I know the DI guys are firmly convinced, but I always have questions about some of the data. One of the things I did want them to try, and I told this to the guy at Kuntz, well, if you're doing that, is there any, I would really like to see a combination, if it's at all possible. So what I mean by that is, assuming DI beats port fuel injection, one thing I would like to have seen us to try would be to take that carburetor, leave it on there, run fuel to it, but make its mixture extremely lean. So in other words, if it was running just on strictly carburetor, it would be too lean for it to it just barely even run. It's like, keep it really, really lean. And all the rest of the fuel come from the DI system. So this way, the carburetor would be cooling the intake tract, but really most of the majority of the fueling that's needed would come from DI. And I would like to see how that performs. In my mind, that seems like the hot ticket, but that's why we test. Remember, I tested that. So instead of speculation, I'd rather have direct tests. So I did talk to him about that. That's a pretty big deal. Really, right now, it's just waiting for an engine. Then it wouldn't be that big a deal to get that done in probably a day or so. And I got to go down to Arkadelphia again anyway, because my son's got to drop him off to go back to college, so it's not a big deal. It is a 4.5-hour drive, but it is what it is. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on and stuff, and I'm pretty happy with all that. So, but there pretty much wraps up this week, in case you're wondering, as far as like the major stuff with that challenge. I should point out too, on the Ford Cam Challenge, which is mostly what I'm going to talk about when I go negative, is all that data is also, in the description for this video, there'll be a link so you can purchase all the data now. So all the cam cards, every single dyno sheet. So the last video I had, because people were like, oh, I got to pay to see it. It's amazing. I put out the video that literally had cam card, dyno sheet, cam card, dyno sheet, cam card, dyno sheet. Hardly anybody watched it. I'm just looking at the statistics, hardly anybody watched it. And that's for free. Now, you'd have to make it through an ad. I guess you couldn't make it through it, whatever. But if you want to see it in person, you can, of course, there'll be a link there. You can get the digital copy. But I'm also doing a print book. I used to do quite a bit of these. Like, for instance, this is the 496 Dyno Mule. I think we tested like 8 different sets of heads. I don't know, 6 or so different intakes on each head. But I made a book out of it. I'm going to do the same thing with that Ford Cam Challenge one, too, so you can actually have a hard copy if you would like to look through that. It's not me writing in here. It's all the data. It's just data. But anyway, that one's also available. There'll be in the description for this video. So, description. Oh, look, there's the link. And then it'll take you to my online store and you could purchase the book. They're pre-order right now. They'll be available August 15th. However, if you purchase either the digital version or the print version, you'll also have a chance to win a camshaft that was used in the Cam Challenge, the Karsten Kafers. You can see all that data. Anyway, so there's that if you want to see all that. Now, because I do value you guys' time, I know it seems like I've been rambletron on here, but anyway, because I value your time, I probably spend too much of my videos doing some of the ramblings, I will admit. But if you're not into any of that, because I'm about to go real negative, and I'm probably going to drop some cuss words. So if you're not into that, just stop watching. Just enjoy my tech part and enjoy it, because that's what the majority of my stuff is tech. I really hate the drama. That's why I left a lot of the other stuff, but I'm going to address some of the stuff because I'm just tired of this BS. But if that's not for you, thank you for watching as much as you have. And thanks for tuning in for the Cam Challenge and watching all this other stuff. I should also point out, too, just one more thing before I tell you to stop watching. Eventually, so after the small block Chevy Cam Challenge, the next Cam Challenge will be the LS Cam Challenge. This is the intake that's going to be ran for it. Now, I'm going to port it, but it's also going to have my new CNC heads on it, my small bore heads, and we're going to do some testing with that. So, but anyway, this came in, cost me a little bit of money, but no, I didn't get it for free. But I look forward to testing with this and doing some modifications on this as well. It should be pretty nice. That's why this is sitting up here. So that one will be the LS Cam Challenge. And after that, so I'm going to tell you, we have the small block Chevy coming up. In October should be the LS. And then the big block Chevy one will be totally different. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you this now before I go negative, because I don't want people to kind of stop tuning out. Because you'll understand why, if you stay around for the negative, you'll understand why I'm doing the big block the way I'm doing it. The last one, period, will be the big block. And I have no idea when it will be. So I don't want to even begin to estimate. For sure in 2026 at some point. But it's not going to be like any of the rest of these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select 5 people. I'm not even, you can't even enter. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you guys can't even enter that one. I'm going to find people that have little to no ego, that just want to know information. And I've got about 5 people in mind that I'm thinking of. They're great people. They don't have an ego. They have a lot of talent and they have a lot of knowledge. And what I'm going to do is I've got a big block 565, or I got a 540, or I might even use those DN9 heads, don't know, and make a 632. And I'm going to develop that engine, and I'm going to get with all of those 5 guys, and I'm going to say, hey, it's not a competition between you guys, but I want you guys to work together. So you're going to have to collaborate with all 5 of each other. And I really want you guys to put your heads together, and I want you to come up with 5 camshafts. And if you want to, you can come up with 1 camshaft. I will dyno, and I'll give you that data, and then you could say, how would you like to make a change? And you 5 people will work together to come up with what you think's best. And all the donations will go strictly back to you, and you'll split it 5 ways. I won't even keep a penny of the donations on that deal. You'll just have to send in a cam. There won't be an entry fee or nothing like that too. I'll eat every bit of the cost. So it'll just be 5 camshafts. You guys come up with the best possible design you can. You work together. It's not one cam company is better than the other. It's you guys work together, and it'll be your ideas for the cam. And that's the reason why I'm picking people without egos, because that is the problem that I'm currently having. But when you don't have an ego, it's much easier to do that. In the end, I think we'll have an amazing camshaft, and you should see some trends or something that may pop up from things that they want to share. But it won't cost them a dime besides the camshaft. I'll pay for all the dyno stuff and all that. And that's the reason why it's going to be 5. And if you're one of the people that right now are typing in there, this isn't fair, I should have been entered, wait till you hear my negative part and you'll understand why I'm done. That will be the last one. After that, I don't care if someone else could take it over. Although in my heart, I know ain't anybody, no one else is going to take this over. So you guys complain all, this is where the negativity is getting into. You guys complain all you want, you know, and no one else is going to do it. Otherwise, that would have already. But anyway, that'll be it. So got the small block Chevy. There's 4 positions left, probably 3 after the camshaft comes in here in a minute or today. And then LS, that's going to be a total random one in case you're wondering how that works. Nobody has a preference. It's first come, first serve on the camshaft, and that's it. Except for I will automatically, I'm telling you, I'm tired of dealing with people I don't want to deal with. Those people I will not let in. Just too bad, so sad. I'll send you back your cam. You shouldn't. I'll tell you, don't even bother entering. I just don't want to deal with that. I've had enough. But other people, I don't care. So, all right. Don't watch anymore if you don't like me rambling, getting mad. So, or if your feelings get hurt here, you might want to turn off too. I've had enough. So here's the negativity. Thanks for watching. Stop watching right now, because here this is the negative part. If this isn't something you like to hear, just don't watch. By the way, this is the second time I filmed it because I think I cussed too much during the first one. You're like, man, you get fired up. You would too. You would too if you didn't. Then you're special. For instance, I'm really envious of Gary Dunsworth. That guy doesn't get worked up like this. I've never seen him like pissed. And I know there's probably times where he probably is and he just doesn't show it well. So amen to him, brother. Anyway, here's the thing. I'm going to go through the negativity right now, and it has to do with the cam challenge and everything that goes with it. So we'll start off with a couple things. So a little bit of history. When I first started this cam challenge, which was the LS cam challenge, was the first one, the whole goal in mind, the whole goal was to find out, to get those people that keep thinking that they're the cam guru, expert, whatever, to show or try to prove that they are. Because initially I'd done some cam testing and people were like, and I showed some differences in the LSA, and they were like, no, this LSA is better than this one because this is what they'd read on the internet and somebody kept preaching it and whatever else. That this LSA is better than this LSA, this duration's better than this exhaust split is more important, blah, blah, blah. everything that they had. And I had done a video actually about an LSA and testing it on a LS engine, and then they just came. So I just had enough, and I said, we're going to do a challenge. And my whole goal for the challenge was to get people to enter, and at the time it was only $100. $100 would get you a chance to win that money back, actually. You could enter the cam for free. But anyway, the goal was to get people who thought they knew a bunch about camshafts to get them to show up and actually see if they could prove it. 23 cams were tested for the challenge. 28 total were tested during that time. None of them were that people. The camshaft challenge was an utter failure. All the people that ran their mouth about how good of cam designer that they were didn't enter. They just didn't. They could still claim to be the best at whatever they were because they never entered. So they didn't have any balls. Because it's real easy to keep being the top of the thing. You can say, I'm the best of this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And if you never have to show it or prove it, you can keep claiming it. And it utterly failed in that regard. But there was a lot of good that came out of it, I thought. So at the beginning one, when we had 23 competitors, they were all great people. Every single one was solid. And everything seemed like it went relatively well. The only people that really complained were the ones that didn't enter, because they have to knock the competition to give them a reason or an excuse why they didn't enter. Because excuses play a big part of this negativity thing that I'm talking about. I have never seen so many excuses in my life for the LS Cam Challenge why they couldn't enter. No, he didn't do this right. This isn't a mismatched combination, blah, blah, blah. He didn't test the timing. He didn't degree in the camshafts. He didn't do all this stuff. It was all crap. It was just excuses for a reason why they couldn't enter, period. But, you know, I was like, it went relatively well. For the first time ever in all my dyno time, I actually made money dyno testing. Never happens. I was even able to pay Bobby, the winner of the thing, $5,000 for winning the cam challenge. Fantastic. Happy, right? It went really, really, really well. After the competition, there was starting to get just a hint or foreshadowing of what would happen in the small block Ford cam challenge. One of the competitors said he would have done better if there was a different set of cylinder heads on it that flowed more air. I didn't think that had anything to do with it. We had tested with a different set of cylinder heads, and for the most part, if they'd been scored again, it would have been exactly the same. But he'd only mentioned it twice ever. So in all this time, twice. And he didn't beat his drum on that. He just mentioned it twice. But my God, this Ford one, woo, I was not prepared for this. So after the LS, I wanted to do the Ford. You might say, why did you choose to do the Ford? You should have known. Several of the people on my channel kept saying, do you ever do anything besides Chevy? Well, my biggest customer is actually a Ford guy. And I have done a lot of intake manifold cylinder heads for him, and it's been pretty successful. No complaints whatsoever. So I thought, you know, it'd be nice if I kind of did something with him, and I'd also like to kind of see him enter. He couldn't, and he had a real good reason why. It was obvious. He had nothing to win and nothing to gain. It wasn't because he didn't have balls. He was truly a lose. And also, he doesn't actually do the camshafts. He has someone else do. But anyway, I was like, well, the other biggest reason for wanting to do the Fords is I'm a cylinder head guy, and I'm going to tell you this. Of the three makes that you'd see the most, you got Ford, Chevy, and Chrysler. I rarely see Chrysler, so I really don't leave them out. But between the Chevy and the Ford, cylinder head-wise, Fords are superior. But the problem is I've never built or had any really great Ford engine to do any dyno testing with, so I wanted to do that. And then several of you are like, well, you should have done a hydraulic roller. That's what they run. If I'm being honest, let's face it, if there's a street Ford guy, typically they've LS swapped it. Just being honest, it's the truth. So the dyed-in-the-wool Ford guys typically are more your bracket race style, and their RPM range is between 5,000 and 7,500, hence the range we wanted to go. Also, they're solid roller. This is your bracket style engine. It's really, really common, very popular. This is it, okay? It seems like it would be a very smart move. So that's what I wanted to do. That's the reason for picking this. But I understood that by doing this Ford and this solid roller stuff and the RPM range, I was going to have less viewership than I would have with the LS, or less following, I guess you'd say. I figured about half. I didn't think it'd be a quarter, less than a quarter of the LS people. So far, far less. And I say that because when you're making money, you can tolerate a lot of stuff. Even when you're getting something out of it, you could tolerate a lot of stuff. When you're getting nothing out of it, you tolerate less. So like I said, on the LS, I was able to make money. On the Ford, I lost probably, all said and done, about $3,000. Now, this isn't negativity about how much money I've lost, but I want you to understand, I'm telling you this just to say my tolerance for dealing with crap is low, very low in this situation. So anyway, the competition goes, and hopefully you guys got a chance to watch it. If you didn't, the last video is really the one you want to watch. It has all the cam cards and all the dyno sheets. So you wouldn't have to have bought the donation at all. The donation was a whopping 20 bucks when it first happened. Now it's 40 because the competition's over. So 20 bucks would have got you all that stuff. But for those that are like, I'm not paying you 20 bucks. Fine. It was all in the video. And guess what? Hardly anybody watched it. I look at the analytics. I'm like, the people complain because there wasn't, you never gave me any data. And then when I give you data, you don't watch it anyway. Disheartening, but whatever. I could live with that. That's fine. All this is like understandable. The two things that stopped that I've had it with that's my reason for me going negative are ego and excuses. We're going to deal with the excuses part first. I understood people giving excuses why they didn't want to enter because they're afraid. They have no balls. They're king of their own world as long as they never compete. I understood that. What I did not expect to have happen were people that competed to give excuses for a reason why they didn't do well. But none of those excuses involved them. So, and I'm not going to name any of them because I want to start by saying the vast majority of the competitors of both challenges, and I mean vast, I mean more than the majority, straight up good guys. I'd have a beer with them anytime. They don't give excuses. They just give results. They understand why they lost, what they would have changed. These aren't those people I'm talking about. The ones that gave excuses are driving me insane. So someone said you need to check out this forum, and I had left forums long ago because it's all ego and it's just excuses. And let me show you how great I am, but you've done nothing. I learned that from the forums for sure. You would read people and you'd read all these forums and you'd see people and you'd think, man, this guy must really do something. He did something great. He must be amazing. And then you go meet them and you're like, you ain't done nothing. You just blew smoke up people's butt. And in theory, the same thing kind of happens on YouTube. You're like, well, you're one of them. Well, you can watch my testing. But read it and I was like, that's a competitor. He's not taking responsibility. He thinks it's my heads that caused him to do bad. So one of the things this person had done is they gave the excuse that they didn't do well because I didn't give the flow numbers correctly. I have 2 flow benches. I flowed on both sets, the head on both flow benches. I guarantee my flow numbers. MBE is not the only one. I do too. Those flow benches read 100% accurate. This one reads higher. That's why I give this one. Those numbers were accurate. Those had nothing to do with why you did not do well. That's an excuse you came up with in your head. What you should have done is looked in your own self. Several of them, then the other thing came up, and that infuriated me because I did the heads. I ported the heads. I'm very proud of the heads. I know the heads do well. And here's the reason why I also know they do well. That Ford customer, I've hand-ported a set of heads just like that for him before. I know exactly how much it made, and it was a lot more power than I made there. You're like, well, then these heads were horrible. Nope. It was a different dyno, different water temperature for sure. But you blaming the head flow, that's an excuse. I'm sure there's other ones you could use, but the one you should have looked at is you picked the wrong can. You needed more duration or something else. You did something wrong. Take it on yourself. I can't stand that. Your ego will not allow you to get better. Several people on that same forum, why I got on it behind me, said, well, the intake manifold must have been the issue. I told them that this intake was better than this and that the outside runners were this and this. And then when they looked at the data, they're like, I don't understand what it means. The one thing I did mess up on the data was because of me. This is me. See, I'm taking responsibility. Learn from this. I had thought that the Ford firing order, I knew the Ford number 1 was on the passenger side, but I thought they went 1, 3, 5, 7. No, they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on this side. So if you just translated it that way, you would figure out where the actual big sizes were and whatnot. Big deal. But they were like, how did you get such a big, large CSA at the back? I don't understand it. How did that happen? You couldn't have done that with a lot of grinding. You're right. I did do something that I didn't share with you, and I'm going to give away a little secret here of what happened. And that's the reason why it did what it did. This is the similar. Now, this is the LS one, but this is similar to a Ford. One of the things that I did, and the problem with these type of manifolds is, if you notice, these two runners here are always shorter than your outside ones. Your outside ones are very long. If you were to take advantage of this, maybe you change certain cam specs, hint, hint, for different runners, you might be able to take advantage of this situation that they're not all the same length, but whatever, you knew it all. One of the things you can do, and what I did, you can't do it with this one, was on that BMP one, I wanted to shorten this outside runner. So what I did was, when I put it up in the end mill, I cut it at a 15 degree angle. So usually you just go around with the end mill to open the clover leaf up on the BMP, but I didn't do that. I actually kicked it back 15 degrees on both ends here. What that does, it brings this side this way. It straightens out this, and then yes, it requires an enormous amount of grinding. Enormous. By the time it was done, this outside runners were pretty thin, like very, very thin. Enormous amount. This isn't the port work you guys do where you just round off the corners and call it good. No, I actually make things larger so it requires more removal of aluminum. So it's actually porting and not just blending that you call porting, but whatever. That's why I could get larger CSA on the outside, which is kind of what I wanted anyway, because the inside ones were going to try robbing everything. Looking at the spark plugs, spot on, by the way, baby. I'm very happy with that. Tested and proved out. That's why you couldn't understand it. Now, I know you're saying, well, wait a minute. This so-and-so put this calculation in and blah, blah, blah. Yours doesn't match up. Your calculations are crap. And here's why your calculations are crap. Not the machine's calculations are crap. Your calculations are crap. You see, when we were on the dyno, we had to get to 160 degrees of water temperature and 160 degrees of oil temperature, or about there. Most people do not dyno that way. They don't. They use fantasy land numbers, so they might have a water temperature of like 105, maybe 130, but let's face it, most of them are in the lower range. Because the cooler water running through the heads, you make more power, a significant more amount of power. I didn't do that for the challenge because it's much easier to keep the water at 160 than trying to keep the water at 130 or 105 for sure, especially when it's over 90 degrees outside in the middle of July in Oklahoma. So your numbers, your BS calculators like certain CFM per horsepower is total garbage anyway. Because if I just cool the engine down and ran it like a lot of you guys do, my numbers go up and your whole calculations go right out the window. That's an excuse. Now, I also understand some of you have fantasy land dynos. That's where you could take your dyno, like I could take the engine that was used there. I can go to your dyno and I will read higher. And I know everybody's like, everybody says their dyno's tight. I've heard that every time. There was some guy that used to get on, and he was on that forum, but said, Dunsworth dyno's high, Dunsworth dyno's high. Then one of the guys I used to dyno with, he actually took an engine to the same place, and guess what? He read the same, or actually, he ran 5 higher than what he did at Dunsworth. We then took it to several other dynos, because he takes it to others, and they were 30 to 40 horsepower up. How would that have changed your calculations? It would have changed a lot, wouldn't it? Because then your dyno numbers look higher. That dyno of Gary's is tight, but it didn't matter. It's a comparison. Strictly a comparison for what was done for the cam challenge. You only had to beat, because everybody was on the same dyno, same water temperatures. The excuse is you. Blame yourself. I do plan to take that engine to other places and get dyno to show the internet horsepower, because I know it's good. Like I said, I ordered the other ones for the other Ford customer, and I know exactly how much they'll make and how much power it makes. But that's on their dyno. They know my dyno, or Gary's, I should say. But that's an excuse. Try blaming yourself. Stop looking at that stuff and trying to find any way but you. Oh, if Eric could give me the true numbers of what it flowed, I would have changed what I was doing. No, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. And if you did, you would have placed just what you did. Stop using excuses. I'm sick of it. The excuses of the people that didn't enter, fine. Excuses of people that, he didn't give me enough data, fine. Competitors, you have no reason. Start looking inwards. When you start giving excuses of why you didn't win, you've already lost. You're the loser. You become the loser. And you're like, did you call me a loser? No, you made yourself the loser. I didn't call you anything. No one who reads that thinks you're a winner. When you take responsibility, they understand you're humble and that you're what you need to change. You're just blaming other things. You'll never learn. That ain't right. Now, just to give you an idea so you understand, I competed in Engine Master for years. I never won. I think the highest place was 6th. After every single one of them, I never blamed Engine Masters for me not doing well. There were several competitors that were there, which we'll get to one of them in a minute, because I've got a negativity problem with you too, running your mouth. But I never blamed Engine Masters for why I didn't do well. I didn't do well because Engine Masters cheated me. And I actually probably could have used that because they had a water temperature rule too. And what I didn't know is you could drain the water in the warm-up between the warm-ups to cool your engine that way, and then you could run it. And that would have helped out your power a lot. Didn't know that. Did I blame them for not knowing that and blame them for allowing it to happen? No. Didn't say you couldn't. I blame myself because I didn't think of it. You are in that position. If you're giving excuses, the heads that I guarantee my head flow. That power, I could take it somewhere else. I know several others where it's going to make more power. Look inward. Look inward. If you couldn't figure out the manifold, that's on you too. And yes, I thoroughly look forward to dynoing other places. Doesn't make me feel better. I don't care. But just so your internet calculators can get off further. So, garbage. Absolute garbage. Not the calculators. So some of you are pulling up PipeMax. PipeMax doesn't know you ran at 160 degrees, or they run at 105 degrees. Doesn't know what your water temperature is, your oil temperature. Doesn't know any of that stuff. Doesn't know that you're slightly rich because I have to deal with 17 different camshafts, and I have no idea how any of you are. I'm not trying to make it the best timing to make best for power. I'm leaving it kind of conservative because I don't know what you guys are going to do for camshafts. Does PipeMax know that? Didn't think so. So stop with your dumb shit. Now, going on. Let's go to the ego part. Ego is probably one of the worst things that hurts people. And it straight up does. And you're like, well, you sound like you got one. Maybe. But here's what I could say about this. Michael Jordan never had to tell anybody he was the best basketball player in the world. Never did. Dale Earnhardt never had to tell people he was the best racer when he was racing. Never did. John Force doesn't have to tell everybody he's the, 13-time NHRA champion. Greg Anderson, Warren Johnson never had to tell people that they were good. The only people that have to tell that they're good are people that aren't good. Just saying it. That's an ego thing. When you have to keep bragging to confirm what you are, people take note. It's a bad look. So, prime example. If you start a video with, I did all these championships, or I did all this, I won that, whatever else, it should be a red flag. No one ever has to, if you saw BES, no one ever has to say that stuff whenever they talk about them, Rare Morrison. They never have to do any of that stuff. They just know. That's why you don't ever see me hear about, I literally could do videos, like a string of videos of all the good stuff that's been happening with my heads or products. But why? That's just building your head bigger. Why? People know. There's no reason to me to say it. If they don't know, it's because you're trying to feed them. That's exactly what killed forums. You had people that really didn't do stuff, but to make themselves look like they did stuff, they keep bragging about stuff that they did, sort of, but not what you think. Sometimes they're taking credit for what someone else's work has happened, which that's actually happened. I've actually had several people call me, or one person call me to say, take credit for the person that won. Sure, those are the people that it's not real. It's just not. So be very wary of people that always want to tell you how good they are and how great they've done. This does not mean you don't get to brag when you win something. So, and this has not to do with Chris Allman, but Chris Allman absolutely should brag. He won. Absolutely should do it. But I always have a rule too. You can brag the first week. The second week, you're done. Because people often have said to me when they were so proud of something that I did for them, like the heads or whatnot, and they won and everything. I said, thank you so much. I'm glad I won. And my heads helped you win, whatever. But I always say it's something else you did. It was not just me. But I also remember that a pat in the back is only 3 feet from a kick in the rear. So you get 1 week. You don't get 2. You just got to keep moving on. Keep that in mind. That keeps your ego in check. That's your lessons for you. But my job is not to stroke your ego or to give you more excuses on why you didn't do well. Those two things are driving me mad and the reason why I've had enough. And if it doesn't make things worse, I'm going to talk a little bit more in a minute about it. But I want to get to one other thing. I am banned from Speed Talk, I assume. I haven't been on there forever, nor will I ever return anyway. But by chance, someone had sent me a screenshot of some of the stuff, and this does piss me off. So I'm going to bring it up. It brings up my name. I want to bring up his name. I'm probably not going to because I'm going to be a slightly bigger person on this, but whatever. One of the things that people said is, you don't give the data for the stuff, for the small block Chevy Cam Challenge. How am I supposed to enter? Read rules and use your head. If you're not smart enough to figure out how to get the information about the engine, how are you smart enough to pick a camshaft? You're not. Oh, because one of the things I heard, I had a person that emailed me, and this is how and I almost wanted to screenshot all the emails and put them up there just so people could see how stupid this sounds. Because like a fool, I then went to Speed Talk, and that same fool was posting all this stuff like, he just wants you to take a wild guess on what the specs are going to be for the small block Chevy when he doesn't give you any of the information. The information is there, straight up easy. It costs you $20 though. I'm sorry you can't figure out the checkout system for an online store. That's a you problem, not a me problem. For those that don't know, the specs for the small block Chevy, you donate $20, you get all the specs. It's pretty simple. It's very simple. It's not hard. Or if you watched all my Saturday update videos like this one, you would have saw as the weeks progress all the information getting added anyway because I told it. I told everything. Now that would take you a little bit of effort. But if you chose not to do that, that's on you. I'm going to pause here. Someone's at the door. It looks like someone's cam showed up. Back to this old man, not the old man's garage. You ran your mouth on Speed Talk and talked about how I didn't give you any of the data and how, and then people blindly believed you. That's the problem I'm having with you. Because you said, no, he doesn't give any of the data. And I'm reading it, and people think, how did he pick all the camshafts without him giving the data? And they believed you, believed your horse crap. You just simply had to pay the donation, which is everybody's done. And then because you didn't even have the information or the brain power to read the rules, which have been out for more than a month, the rules said when those 5 people that remain, those 5 spots, which really there's 4 and now 3, when those people have their money, entry fee, and camshaft here, they're entered. You didn't read the and part, the 2 things. So you ran your mouth and said, look, you could send in $600, it means nothing. No, it doesn't. It absolutely means nothing. If you'd read the rules, smart enough to pick a camshaft, not smart enough to figure out the rules. It's right there. Stop bashing me because you're not smart enough to figure stuff out. I'm sorry you're whatever old and don't know how to run the internet. That gets off him. And by the way, I've seen this repeated pattern with you. You did it at EMC years after year after year. But I'll still let you in on the LS if you can be one of the next 3. I'm sorry, not in the LS, but in the small block Chevy. Totally not doing the LS. I ain't dealing with that. I'm tired of your drama. I don't even know what the excuse is going to happen with you. Anywho, besides that, so we have that part, I've dealt with that. The ego and the excuses are nuts. And the bad part about you running your mouth on the internet, whether it be excuses or bragging, besides that, the thing is, people that don't know anything will read that and believe your crap. You know, and that drives the thing down and does not help things at all. And I would like to say this. This camshaft challenge really takes place because of me. And I know it sounds like I've got an ego now, but no. I can promise you this. I am not the first one that came up with this idea for a cam challenge. No, there's no way. Someone else out there had this thing probably years and years ago. The one thing is they just never did it. So, yeah, in a way, I kind of made it happen. But I'm not bragging because it took a lot of people to make this happen. You guys keep bashing stuff. Keep bashing, keep bashing, keep bashing, and then it disappears, and you wonder why it went away. You are. You're the reason. So I'll give you an example. So this week, we got a notification that Thunder Valley Raceway in Oklahoma City is closing. It's a drag strip that's been around since 1992. It's technically in Noble, Oklahoma. The Street Outlaw guys tested there for a long time. It's a great track. It's a nice facility. So this is not a rundown facility whatsoever. It's a nice place. They're closing down. When asked by Dragzine, the people that leased the track, why they were closing, they gave this answer. And I'm paraphrasing, so bear with me. They said people wanted 1990s entry fee, and they wanted payouts like it was 2034. Meaning, you want cheap, cheap, cheap to get in, but you want to pay a max amount more than even it's coming in. And he said that's not viable. So like, for instance, I don't know how much I got beat up on the entry fee. Heard that from several of you. The whole camshaft challenge before with the LS was simply just to see who would come out, trying to get those people, like I'd said before. So if I made it cheap, hopefully they had no reason why they couldn't enter. They didn't enter anyway. We had it reasons. Their excuses. They didn't want to enter, blah, blah, blah. On the next one, because it was going to cost more, and obviously it takes longer to change a camshaft on the Ford than it does an LS, it had to be an entry fee to pay for this. I still lost over $2,000. Didn't matter. People still mad that they had to pay the higher entry fee. Same with this next one's going to be a higher entry fee. So I had to hear that. The next thing that they said is this owner, I'm paraphrasing again, they had an event. It got all done. And after the event was all said and done, they lost a lot of money. And they're like, well, they go home and they look online, and those same people that competed in the event that they had were bashing them in the track that they owned. And they thought to themselves, why in the world am I doing this? I'm losing money for people that I'm trying to help just to bash me. That's this. That's this. This was meant to find out like I'd already described. But if you like this stuff and you wanted to see it happen, you should have supported it positively. But no one else is doing it. And even when I've stopped doing it, maybe someone will take it over, but it'll probably be far less, and they'll be done in one. Maybe they'll go longer. I hope so. I really do. Because of the ego. I really prefer if someone else did it anyway. You're bashing something that gives you a chance to prove yourself. And you wouldn't even be known without it, some of you. Quite frankly. But you bash it. You just don't get it. And that's the problem. I even had, and the biggest thing with this, I was hoping at least people get something out of the data. But people still abuse the data as if it was a stepchild. You're like, hey, there's nothing to be learned. I literally saw that on one of the posts. There's nothing to be learned from this. There is, but if you're too dumb to figure it out, then no, there's nothing for you. You probably couldn't have learned anything in school anyway. And you probably won't learn anything from this, and you'll always be last in trying to ask on a forum how to do so-and-so because you still can't figure it out. Even when someone gives you an answer to the question you asked on a forum, you'll then argue with them and you still won't know how to do it. There's information there. You just couldn't use it the way you were hoping to because There's more than one variable in camshafts. Anyway, that pretty much ends this negative rant. I don't think I'm going to do another one. I'm done with it. So, because part of me is I get older, obviously I'm tired of dealing with crap. So if I don't want to have to deal with this, I just choose not to, and I'll just test on my own like I was doing before. And I could have tested way more stuff. Matter of fact, because people have asked about this Ford thing, the amount of money I spent on the Ford, I could have literally tested 5 or probably 10 camshafts on my own and tested whatever I wanted to. And I would have been money ahead. Straight up. So, anyway, stop abusing this system. Stop with the egos. And stop, for the love of God, giving excuses. Winners don't give excuses when they don't do well. They just do better. They find what they did wrong, they adjust, and they go. They don't get online and poo-hoo for themselves on why they sucked, even though none of you sucked. That will end this video. Good luck entering the challenges. The small block Chevy one, even if I think you drive me thoroughly nuts, if you can be the next 3, good luck. Get your camshaft in. But otherwise, yeah, don't blame me. Rules have been out for more than a month. Sorry you didn't fall long. Couldn't fall. Don't blame me. That's a you problem. Blame yourself. And for the vast majority of the viewers and everything else, look, I got 42,000 subscribers. I'd say 99.9% are fantastic. It's the other ones that kill you. Anyway, but yep, that's all I got. I don't plan to do a lot of these. If I lose subscribers, sorry, I warned you. Probably not to watch this. But thanks for watching. I'm no Superman. I did race Superboy. I don't pour cast iron heads, and I hate people with egos.